Two of these three unsolved mysteries were committed against a child and therefore may not be suitable for all listeners. Story 1. Gail Delano. Gail Elizabeth Delano was a 36-year-old single mother living in Westport Island, Maine, a small coastal community where everyone seemed to know everyone. She had two teenage sons, Ryan and Tim, and lived close to her own parents. These were the people she leaned on, yet her inner struggles ran deep. Gail had battled clinical depression for years. It was something she managed quietly, medicated, but heavy on her mind. In her personal journal, she wrote about loneliness and longing for connection, the kind that went beyond casual friendships. "To find someone to share my life," she wrote, her words heavy with yearning. On June the 21st, 1986, Gail told her sons she was going out to meet a, quote, man from a personal ad. They'd heard this before. She had responded to newspaper personal ads hoping for companionship, but this time she said she might be out overnight. That morning, she drove to a Howard Johnson's restaurant along US Route 1 in Brunswick, Maine. Witnesses saw her sitting outside in her car, a familiar green 1980 Toyota Tercel. But that was the last time anyone saw her alive. When Gail didn't come home, her family wasn't immediately alarmed, but when the calls went unanswered and hours had passed, the police were called. They found her locked car still in the parking lot, her keys lying on the ground beneath it, not in her pocket or ignition, and her purse untouched, but with no money, found in bushes several yards away. This baffled authorities. Why would she leave her purse? Why had she left her keys behind? And the mysterious John, the man she supposedly met, was nowhere to be found. There was no record of him in her meticulous notes and dating logs. No leads that checked out. Investigators went down every possible path. Foul play? Abduction at the restaurant parking lot was a theory. Suicide? Gail's history of depression suggested it as a possibility. Voluntary disappearance? Could she have wanted to just simply start over? Her family was torn. Some believed she had been harmed. Others feared the worst, that she'd taken her own life. And then, nothing. Just silence. For almost 2 years, there were no confirmed sightings and no breakthroughs. Her case sat in limbo, until Unsolved Mysteries stepped in. In October 1988, Unsolved Mysteries aired an episode about Gail's disappearance. It was raw, emotional, and broadcast to millions. She left her car, her keys and her purse, and simply vanished. Was she the victim of a stranger, or did she just choose to disappear? Agents on the show asked. The telecast triggered hundreds of tips, and one of them came from Mobile, Alabama. A forensic administrator for the Mobile Medical Examiner's Office had noticed a 1986 unidentified woman found dead in a Hilton hotel room. A woman who checked in under the name Jackie Stafford, claiming to be from San Diego. The arrival date? June the 21st, 1986. The very day Gail disappeared. Here is what investigators pieced together. The woman who died in Mobile paid for 2 nights in cash. She had checked in wearing a wig and using false identification. 3 days later, hotel staff entered the locked room, finding her dead on the bed, surrounded by prescription medication. Her death was ruled as a drug overdose. Intentional. No one knew who she was until Gail's name and photo aired on national television. Dental records, family identification of clothing and personal items, and other forensic confirmation matched the young woman to Gail Elizabeth Delano. The mystery was finally resolved. Gail Delano. Her death was officially ruled a suicide by intentional overdose. Evidence suggests she staged her disappearance, leaving her car and belongings to imply foul play, then travelled to Alabama, checked into the hotel with a fake identity, and took her own life. The family. After years of not knowing, Gail's family finally held a memorial in November 1988. Her father, Platt Montfort, died at age 84 in 2005. Her brother, Tim, passed away in 2021 at age 52, and her mother, Betty, died at 98 in 2023. And what of John, the mysterious man Gail told her family she was meeting? Well, he has never been identified or located. Police have now confirmed that he actually never existed. Gail's case is one of false beginnings and heartbreaking ends. It can unsettle because it didn't end in violence by another person, but rather a woman overwhelmed by her own pain, who crafted a disappearance that became something much bigger than she likely ever intended. And it reminds us that mysteries aren't always out there in the darkness. Sometimes they are hidden within the human heart itself. Story 2. Jeremy Bright. In the late summer of 1986, Myrtle Point, Oregon was buzzing with the annual Coos County Fair. The carnival rides, parts of the fair in motion, the laughter and the crowds. For 14-year-old Jeremy Doland Bright, this fair was supposed to be one of the highlights of the season. Jeremy had grown up in the area, but his life had changed the year before. After his mother, Diane Bright, and his stepfather, Orville Gulseth, separated, Diane moved her family, Jeremy and his 10-year-old sister, Esty, about 100 miles away to Grants Pass, Oregon. When summer arrived, Diane agreed to let Jeremy and Esty return to Myrtle Point to stay with their stepfather and attend the fair together. It was a chance to reconnect with friends and family, and for Jeremy, a break from school stress and the changes at home. On August the 14th, 1986, the day started like any other fair day. Jeremy and Esty were at the fairgrounds with friends, wandering the attractions and soaking up the sunny afternoon. At about 2 p.m, they split up. Jeremy to go his own way, Esty to explore elsewhere, with a plan. Meet back by the Ferris wheel at 5 p.m. But that meeting never happened. Jeremy never showed. Hours later, around 4:45 p.m, Jeremy called his mother from a payphone outside a market in town. He told her he was having a great time and they made plans for her to come pick him and Esty up in Myrtle Point in 2 days. He then went to see his stepfather at a local tavern owned by his grandmother, asking to borrow money for the next day's fare. And then, he vanished. Nobody saw him again. When Diane arrived as planned on August the 16th to pick up the kids, she found a scene that tore her world apart. Jeremy's wallet and keys were left behind. His watch, something he wouldn't usually lose or abandon, sat still, motionless in the house. Even his extra clothes and personal items were untouched, so no sign that he had run off willingly. Panic rippled through the family. Diane reported him missing. Local police began a search, but clues were scarce. Almost immediately, rumours began to swirl around Myrtle Point. Some neighbours claimed to have seen Jeremy after he supposedly disappeared. A few said he was forcibly taken by an unknown man near the fairgrounds. Others claimed he was spotted around town in the days that followed. These sightings, although unconfirmed, led law enforcement to temporarily consider that Jeremy had just run away, perhaps joining a travelling carnival or heading out on his own. But those theories didn't add up. Jeremy wasn't the type to just run away without telling his sister, his mum, or taking his belongings. Inside the community and among investigators, darker stories emerged. None verified, but all haunting all the same. Some believed Jeremy had attended a party and drank a beer laced with drugs. Because he had a heart murmur, this could have caused fatal complications. An anonymous tip from a jailhouse source claimed that a group of older teens had cornered Jeremy and his friends at a nearby swimming hole. One allegedly fired a gun into the water and hit Jeremy. They took him to a remote cabin, tried to care for him, but he died of his wound. His body, according to that tip, was buried in a shallow grave nearby. Police searched the area, including a cabin site and woods, but found nothing. A local woman reported seeing a teen covered in blood entering an apartment building the night Jeremy disappeared. The teen laughed off questions about it, a detail that disturbed investigators but led nowhere concrete. One person who fell under scrutiny was Terry Lee Steinhoff, someone who had babysat Jeremy in the past. On the day Jeremy vanished, some witnesses reported seeing Jeremy in a truck with Steinhoff. Years later, Steinhoff was convicted of killing a 32-year-old woman in an unrelated incident and sentenced to life in prison. He died there in 2007, reportedly of a heroin overdose. However, he was never formally charged or arrested in connection with Jeremy's disappearance. Despite searches of wells, ponds, wooded property, cabins, and other tips over the decades, no body has ever been found, and no charges have ever been filed in the case. As of now, Jeremy remains missing and presumed dead. If he were alive today, he would be in his early 50s, and age-progressed photos have been created by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Jeremy's mother eventually moved to Florida in 1998, but returned to Oregon in summers to help with searches and keep her son's memory alive. She and the family held a formal memorial service for Jeremy in August 2011, acknowledging the reality that he would likely never return. Esty has carried the legacy of her brother's disappearance with her. In interviews years later, she's spoken about how the promise to meet by the Ferris wheel has haunted her life and how the unresolved nature of the case continues to affect her. Steinhoff, the former babysitter and considered by many as a person of interest, died in prison in 2007. His death ended the possibility of questioning him further about Jeremy's fate. The disappearance of Jeremy Bright remains one of Oregon's most perplexing cold cases. A normal afternoon at a county fair transformed into a lifetime of questions for a family and a community, unanswered, unresolved, and unforgotten. Story 3. Michaela Garecht. It was Saturday, November 19th, 1988. A clear autumn day in Hayward, California, a suburban city in the East Bay of the San Francisco area. Michaela Joy Garecht was 9 years old, bright-eyed, blonde, and just weeks shy of her 10th birthday. That morning, Michaela and her friend Katrina Rodriguez set off together on their scooters toward the Rainbow Market, a small neighborhood grocery store just 2 blocks from Michaela's home. Their goal was simple: buy snacks and a soda before heading back home to play. The girls parked their scooters by the store entrance and went inside. They chatted, picked out treats, and handed the cashier their money. But when they stepped back outside, something was off. One of the scooters, Michaela's friend's, was no longer exactly where they'd left it. "Let's go get it," Michaela said. It was then, in the sunny parking lot, that everything turned terrifying. Michaela walked toward the scooter, which now rested beside a parked car. Just as she bent over to grab the handlebars, a white male suddenly stepped out of the vehicle, wrapped his arm around her waist, and lifted her off the ground. Michaela screamed. Her friend Katrina froze, tears welling, heart pounding, before rushing into the store for help. The store clerk called police at 10:23 a.m, but by the time anyone raced outside, both Michaela and the abductor were gone. Witness descriptions painted a chilling picture. A Caucasian man in his late teens to early 20s, long, dirty blonde hair and a slender build. His face was described as pockmarked or acne scarred, and he wore a simple white t-shirt. His car was described as a larger, older model American sedan, possibly cream or tan, battered from age, but in the confusion of the early investigation, initial media reports mistakenly shared the wrong description, slowing the search. Within hours, the community mobilized. Police launched one of the largest missing child investigations in Bay Area history. 5,000 tips poured in the first year alone. Posters and flyers plastered telephone poles and storefronts. National media outlets picked up the story. Michaela's face appeared on Unsolved Mysteries, America's Most Wanted, and news shows across the country. Even Joe Montana, the legendary San Francisco 49ers quarterback, made a public plea for her safe return. Investigators combed hillsides, parks, and undeveloped parts of Alameda County by helicopter and on foot, checking every lead that came in. One crucial piece of evidence was found at the scene: a partial fingerprint and palm print on Michaela's scooter. Law enforcement believed this could belong to the abductor, but technology at the time wasn't advanced enough to identify the owner. Year after year, the case went cold. Over time, police looked into connections with infamous killers in the area, from the speed freak killers, Wesley Shermantine and Lauren Herzog, to other serial suspects, but none led to a real resolution. In 2009, after the high-profile return of J.C. Dugard, another kidnapped girl, investigators revisited Michaela's file, even interviewing suspects and re-reviewing evidence, but all searches for remains and further clues came up empty. Over the decades, rumours and alleged sightings swept forums and tip lines, but none were credible enough to break the case wide open. Then, more than 32 years later, on December the 21st, 2020, a major announcement shook the Bay Area and brought a moment of long-awaited hope and horror. David Emery Mish, a 59-year-old inmate already serving time for a 1989 murder, was officially charged with kidnapping and murder of Michaela Garecht. The breakthrough came when investigators were able to match the partial palm print found on Michaela's scooter to Mish's prints, a link that wasn't previously detectable with older fingerprint databases. Prosecutors also pointed out that Mish had a history of violent crime in the area, including being linked to the 1986 double murder of two young women in nearby Fremont, California. Even with the arrest and charges, there remains one heartbreaking truth. Michaela's body has never been found, and her final whereabouts are still unknown. Her disappearance is being treated as a murder, but without a body, prosecutors continue to rely on circumstantial evidence and the fingerprint match. In past years, fragments of bones found in a well associated with the speed freak killers were sent for DNA testing in hopes they belonged to Michaela, but there's been no confirmation that they are actually hers. Michaela Garecht, still officially missing and presumed dead. If she were alive today, she would be in her mid-40s. Her disappearance remains open and unresolved, with investigators still hoping to find her remains. Katrina Rodriguez. Michaela's friend and the only human witness to the abduction, Katrina gave the initial description of the suspect and has been periodically interviewed over the years as the case evolved. Sharon Murch, Michaela's mother. She has never stopped advocating for her daughter. Following the 2020 arrest, her emotional statement was read at a press conference because she could not attend in prison. She now lives in a small town in Iowa. Her voice and public dedication to Michaela's memory have kept the case in the public eye for decades. Rod Garrett, Michaela's father. He travelled from his home to support the 2020 press announcement and continues to seek answers about what happened that day. David Misch. Charged in Michaela's kidnapping and murder, he is being held at Santa Rita Jail, facing potential life sentence or even the death penalty if convicted. He is also linked to other violent crimes from the 1980s, showing a long-standing pattern of brutality. The case of Michaela Garecht is a chilling reminder of how a single moment, just a simple trip to the store for soda and snacks, can alter countless lives forever. For more than 3 decades, her disappearance remained one of California's most haunting mysteries, until modern forensic science finally pointed investigators toward a suspect. Yet, even today, the central question still stands. What really happened to Michaela after she was taken? And perhaps, even more painfully, where is she now?